Thank you, robot lady. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Virtual Coffee Brown Bag Edition. For those of you who are new, or I guess those who might be watching online, Virtual Coffee's mission is to be a welcoming tech community, room for growth and mentorship at all levels, create meaningful opportunities for learning, leadership, and contribution for everyone. One of the ways that we do this is by having our Brown Bag series, where members can take some time and share any topic that's of interest to them, display what they've learned to other members, share useful tips and tricks, and just, provide a space for everyone to learn more and grow, and just, tell us a little bit what they enjoy. Today, we have the very, very, very wonderful Todd Libby, who has been doing important work around accessibility in this industry for a very long time. Definitely one of the new stand-up members of the community, always giving advice, feedback on how people can write better software, but most importantly, software that is inclusive and software that can appeal to everyone and provide a platform for everyone to get benefits. Today, Todd is going to be talking about resilient job searching. I think this is one of the most important things we talk about in this community. The tech space is large and complicated, and especially looking for a job, especially when you're just starting to code, or even at a mid-level, at a senior level, the landscape feels like it's constantly shifting. It feels like very difficult to navigate. And if you're not prepared, it can be a arduous and sometimes demoralizing experience. So I'm really happy that Todd's here today, share some of his experiences, give us some advice, some strategies, some techniques to hopefully overcome it and get to a place that we can feel happy about. And with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Todd. Take it away.
Thank you, Goose. Thank you, Kirk. Hi, everybody. The introduction out of the way, I want to also add that I am currently working, and it is my, third month? Let's see, April, May, June, third month at Knowbility. It's an accessibility company in Austin, Texas. And I'm going to be talking about the experience I had with the job search before I landed that role. Thank you, Meg. So I want to address first, though, the elephant that's usually in the room when a guy like me is talking about something like pretty much anything in tech, and that's my privilege. I know I come from a place of privilege, and it's easier for me to get the roles, or anybody like me to get the roles that we get. I wanted to do this talk for the simple fact that if I can do it, especially at this age, because I'm 50 years old, and let's face it, there is ageism in tech. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. So with that said, I want to get out of, when I do a talk, I want to get out of my comfort zone. That's why I do this. That's why I address what I call the elephant in the room, and that is my privilege. So with that said, this talk is to offer encouragement. I see a lot of people that are really, they get kind of beaten down from the job search. It's, whether a company is, flat out refuses. They send that lovely email that says, well, we loved your resume, but, or even the ones that ghost you. And I've been ghosted countless times, and it's infuriating. I'll put it that way. I'd rather get the rejection email than get ghosted. So I want to turn this into a positive for anybody looking for a job in tech. One is do not give up, because if you're not a guy like me, a white guy, doesn't matter how old, up to a certain point, I guess, it can be even more difficult. Let's face it. It can be extremely difficult. There are more hurdles. There are more barriers. And I'm trying to break those barriers as best I can to get back to the community. So putting a positive spin on everything, don't give up is easy for me to say. And I wrote about it, and I'll throw a link in the chat. And I'll do that right now, actually. If anybody wants to take a read through. I know it's easy for me to say, don't give up, but I encourage people, no matter who, if you want a job in tech, be persistent, stay with it. Be that gnat that flies around the company's ear, you know. I did this in a non-traditional way. I had applied, and let me go back a minute to how I landed this job. And I talked about it with my team, and I talked about it with the CEO. And this job that I landed was because of my work. It wasn't because who I was. There were other people that were in the running as well. And I was down to the final 3. And I was able to get the job because of the writing that I've been doing, the speaking that I've been doing, and the work that I've been doing. And I even think I bribed them with lobster rolls at one point, but that's beside the point. I applied for a senior accessibility role, and I'm still learning about accessibility, which is why I belong to the W3C. I belong to far too many groups in the W3C, which causes me to have multiple meetings during the week, upwards of 20 meetings a week, but it's worth it because it's accessibility. It's something I love. So if there's something you love, especially about what you do in tech, and I think we're all here because you're in tech, stick with it. Be persistent. I shouldn't say I didn't use, I tried to use a recruiter and they just didn't work for me, which is why I did this non-traditional kind of, I just sent out resumes, like throwing spaghetti against a wall and seeing if they stuck. I had applied to over 2,100 jobs in 20 years and was hired twice. And so that would bring me back to, 30 years old was when I started the job search. There had been small roles here and there, but nothing in a large company or even a medium-sized company like Knowbility. Knowbility is they have a name out there, and they're one of the big accessibility players in the industry. We do auditing and remediation and such. And the persistence is, one, because I'm stubborn. That's in my blood. 2 is I can't give up on something knowing that I have not completed what I've done. So for instance, my list, prior to the year was find a job in tech. Didn't matter what it was. I was looking for programming roles, to be honest with you. And this one came across and I said, why not? It's accessibility. It's something I love to do. There is a very limited amount of code that I do. And even then, it's not actually writing code that's working. It's writing code that is, and it's really HTML, to show our clients how to make things accessible. So, I mean, there's no programming piece in it really to say, as much as the accessibility portion of it. But I want to keep coming back to the persistence. I know it's tiring, and I was tired. I was pushed to the edge multiple times of just giving up. I probably had given up, I want to say like 100, 200 times. I give up. This is pointless. This is useless. I'm running into a dead end after dead end. I'm running into a wall. The amount of emails I got that said, we loved your resume. We love the experience you have, but you just don't have insert whatever here. It's frustrating, I know. It can be, it downright led me to a bout of depression, is where I got, to where it was like questioning myself, am I good enough? Should I just close everything down on social media and say, to heck with it, and just throw the towel in? But I couldn't get myself to do that because I don't give up that easy. And I'm not going to let tech dictate when I leave. I'm going to leave on my own terms. That's the big thing. I have, I want to say, a good 10 to 15 years left in me before I say, you know what? I've done what I set out to do, and it's time to hand that off to somebody or whoever else, I've given back what I can to the community that has been given back to me, has given to me. I mean, I started this programming / accessibility journey. Well, not the accessibility part, but the programming. I started at age 9 when I did BASIC on a Commodore, and it just fascinated me. And from there, when I started doing this full time, which was what, it was 1999. So it was like 20 some odd years ago, 22 years ago. Okay. I'm not going to let tech or, all these companies that, didn't hire me or just ghosted me. I'm not going to let them dictate when I leave. I'm going to leave on my own terms. So that led me to one day, out of the blue, I knew I had that resume out to Knowbility. And I was like, well, I gave it my best. That was the mindset I had after I had interviewed. I did two meetings of interviews, two interviews each day. So it was 2 days of 2 interviews. And I was like, that I've done the best I can. I pitched myself. So what I did, and I'll share this also, is I gave myself 5 key points to focus in on. And I'd been doing this for quite a long time. 5 key points where I'm talking with somebody from a company, and I'm going to hone in on these 5 key points and talk about those and keep them there. If they want to talk about something else, sure, you talk about that briefly, but then I like to steer them back to, and more often times than not, for me, it was accessibility. So if they wanted to talk about programming, I would kind of steer it towards accessibility. Your mileage may vary. So one of the topics that I like to cover was problem solving. Of course, we do that a lot in programming. That's a given. There's also a lot of it in accessibility as well. So to make things accessible and make things inclusive, there's a lot of problem solving. The second was communication. In order to make things accessible, and I'm going to use accessibility as the theme here, to make things accessible, you need to communicate with your client. You need to communicate with your team. You need to communicate in the company, in between departments. And the third point I would make would be front-end development, semantic HTML, separate presentation from separate the HTML from the CSS, separate sometimes, it's different now, JavaScript from your HTML. And that brings me way back before React and frameworks and such. And the fourth key point I would make, and again, your key points, these help me. If you want to use this, go for it. Yours may differ, but the fourth one I used was teamwork. I had worked 17 years solo for freelance. I wanted to get back into a team role because being the only person that had to take care of not only the programming or the design and everything in between, I had to take care of getting paid. I had to track down clients who weren't paying. I had to, do the books, this, that, and the other thing. I didn't want to do it anymore. So that's why I wanted to get into the team, into a team role. And of course, naturally, the fifth point that I would focus on would be accessibility, because I've been doing it for so long and I think I do a pretty good job at it. I know it's tough, and I see a lot of jobs lately. I see a lot of roles opening up. We see a lot of people that are leaving their jobs, and there are roles out there. If I was applying for jobs that I kind of knew that I didn't cover all the bases, all the requirements. You see that list of requirements that a company has, and you're like, okay, I know that, but I don't know that, and I'm kind of good at that, but I'm not real good, but I can learn. Go for it. Just give them your resume. I got a bit of advice a while back, and that was, it's okay to say you don't know something, and that companies and that are worth their salt and that value employees, companies that hear somebody say, I don't know, but either I can learn or I can find out, those are the companies you want to work for. It's okay to say, I don't know. I've said it a million times, it seems. There's been questions. I'm okay with React, but I'm not the best. And somebody asked me a question and I go, I just don't know. I can find out though. Or that would be a great question to ask somebody if I'm on, if I'm hired and I'm on your team. And it hasn't got me the job, but it has got me another step forward in the process, because, you know, we all have those, you know, 4 days worth of calls, or, you know, 4 different steps. Or I saw somebody talking about how they went through a 9-step process to get a job, and that was a little ridiculous, but I'm not a glutton for punishment. Well, actually I am, considering my batting average is for the job search was 2 for 2,100, but it's okay to say I don't know, but you can find out, or you want to learn. Learning for me on the job, if I were an employer, would far exceed somebody that has that. I know that. The curiosity of learning is something I would look for. And I'm not a hiring manager, and let's face it, hiring in tech is broken. It's a process where some companies have people that aren't technical at all. And HR, let's face it, again, HR protects the company. It doesn't protect the employee. And I see the lobster comments in the chat, and I'm kind of loving it. So, so don't give up. You know, it's okay to say, I don't know. And you know what, the 5 points, you know, that I like to use, you know, that's something that, those 3 things. And I mean, again, it comes down to, do you want to stay in tech? And I think everybody here today wants a job in tech because it's something that we love to do. So go get that job. It's out there. I found it far more, it was far more off in the distance than I thought it was going to be, but I found it. I found it through persistence, and some people would say perseverance, and yeah, but like I said earlier, I'm not going to let tech dictate when I leave. I'm going to do that. I'm going to say when is when, you know, I'm going to say, okay, that's it. You know, I've done all I can. Like I said before. So, another thing too, with saying you don't know, that's not a sign of weakness. And I think I think a lot of companies, and see, okay, a good example would be, I had an interview with a company in the education space, and they asked me a question, and I can't remember what the question exactly was. It had something to do, they were using PHP, and I haven't touched PHP in a very long time. And they asked me a question, and I said, I don't know. And the look on the guy's face kind of told me, okay, they don't view that, they view that negatively. And I can stand on my pulpit here and say, well, that's wrong, they shouldn't do that, but it's going to happen. It's something out of my control. So leading into another point, when you have that resume and you say, this is it, this is what I am going to, you know, this is going to get me the job that I want, and you're giving out those resumes, and I totally spaced on where I was going with this, but anyways, Uh, let's take some questions. If anybody's got any questions, and then I'll try to remember what the heck I was talking about because I got totally sidetracked.
I'm not sure if we have any questions yet in the chat. A lot of people in agreement, a lot of support, I think. I think we've just been like quietly resonating with what you've been saying for the last 30 minutes for sure. Yeah. I kind of want to, if you don't mind, I kind of want to jump back to the ageism thing because I feel like it's probably one of the least talked about biases in the industry, but it is certainly there, and especially in an industry where I think more than others you find organizations run by young people, and it's one of those things like race, like gender, where the person sees you, makes an immediate determination, like you have no idea, right? Like you have no idea if this person in front of you is just going to treat you as a person, or if they're going to factor your age against you, if they have any implicit biases. And like you said, you get this rejection that says like, oh, we don't think you're going to be a good fit, you know? And it's like, you didn't tell me why. And then the answer is like, oh, well, I don't know. But then you go to the company's page and you look at who they've hired, and it's like clear, like there's an implicit age bar there. And I remember online, I saw someone talking and they were like, oh, I mean, am I too old to get into tech? I'm 32. And I'm like, what is happening? What?
Yeah.
You know, but like, that's how people feel. And I think also, I mean, it's good to celebrate people's achievements, but like, we're always commenting on like the age, like, oh, this young 24-year-old, this young 22-year-old. And like, it gives people this impression that like, there's a shelf life for using your brain, and it's like 24 or something, or some ridiculous number. Yeah, that's definitely, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, I guess, to combat and to think about and to like identify, but it is certainly there. Yeah. And it almost feels like, especially in this culture of startups and some of these hustle things, a lot of people are saying, well, I think older people are less likely to make unreasonable sacrifices for work, and thus they may be harder to exploit. Mm-hmm. And unlike, you know, the 19-year-old who might not know better, who will happily give me 20 hours for the next 3 years until they flame out. Right. So it's another thing that feels inherently tied to kind of like the greed of this industry. Young people are easier to make work far too much and far too often. But it's you're trading in a lot of ways experience and maturity for, you know, quick work and some like real bad beats at the end, right? Meg, what's up?
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback off of that too, because I think that when it comes to ageism, from my experience in IT recruiting, we would place a lot of people in contract positions that were like 1 or 2 years. So with things like that, I think it depends on what kind of job you're looking for, because there were definitely situations when people were just looking to pick up contract work and work as contractors. They might have had a partner that had a full-time job, so they're like, oh no, I'm good with benefits, like I go through them, and they just wanted some income. So that was kind of an ideal situation, because if it's only going to be a couple years, age isn't an issue in that case. It's not like, oh yeah, we're hiring this person and we're going to get only a few years out of them before they retire, whereas we can get someone young. And like, obviously no one's going to say that out loud since that's illegal, but like people know it's going through hiring managers' minds. Something that I think what Kirk was speaking to doesn't go through people's minds and should is the experience that people bring versus kids just out of college versus people who have had experience in either the industry or other industries, just experience in the workforce and know how to interact with other people in a professional setting. When you have all these young kids coming right from college, going into startups and, you know, running the show, you know, you get like the startup culture with all the games and the kegs in the office and stuff. And it's fun for them, I guess, but it's like an extension of the college party scene in a way, and that's not for everybody, and that's not conducive to the best work in most of the cases. And it creates a culture that alienates a lot of people, whereas people who are more mature and know, you know, have had the chance to become adults and have different responsibilities can be like, hey, you know, that's great for after work hours out of the office. And also keep in mind, you're still with your colleagues. So you do want to keep it professional and just kind of guide people in that way. And that brings something that you can't quantify to the table. And that's definitely undervalued. And hopefully, you know, with the changes that we've been seeing in tech, hopefully that starts to become factored in as well. If I interviewed at a company where that was a factor, like that would definitely make me want to work there more, even though I'm not someone who's older. I'd at least know that I'd have mentors that, you know, are with it. So
yeah, I'm glad you touched on that culture piece, Meg, because I kind of equate tech in that sort of culture with the restaurant business. I was a chef for 20 years. The restaurant industry breeds alcoholism. And I'm firsthand witness to that. I worked at a place a long time ago where instead of getting our yearly bonuses, they put in a full working bar and keg in the office. And wasn't that my best friend?
you can't pay your bills with beer.
No, you can't.
I can try.
You can't write coherent CSS and HTML with beer either, or I can't. So yeah, that is the culture where, so I applied at a job where I talked with a CEO who could have been my kid. Let's face, you know, and I'm like, this is really, really awkward and it's really, really odd. And he's like, yeah, we have like, you know, bean bags and this and that, and, you know, shuffleboard or whatever. I'm just like, what is this? You know, is this Google? You know, I don't want to work if I wanted to work at Google, I would have applied at Google, you know.
Like, it's like I could take my laptop to a McDonald's play pen and do the same thing on my lunch break.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing too, is I know a job isn't for me when I'm talking to somebody that could be my kid, and calling themselves a CEO. They're not a CEO. Oh, I created a product and I named myself the CEO. Do you have all the experience of a CEO? And that's, I see, there's a certain company that I will not name where a CEO acted like a child, a petulant child, when there was some controversy, and it just showed that the party culture, because I know that they are, you know, they were always talking about that in some spaces where I ran across with them. I don't want to work at those companies. I want to work at a company where I can do my work, do it right, contribute. And I'm at that place now where I can do that. You know, I don't need liquid courage to make things accessible, just my brain. So, all right, let's do the questions.
I think Narando's next.
So I was thinking about like what was being said while I was what was being said about like second career stuff, and I started to make a like jot down some points before I forget. Ageism is a real thing. The trick is to find a place that understands that your experience is a benefit to them, because you will see stuff that they don't see. Like I heard about a company here in Atlanta that they are building a restaurant SaaS product. The trick is that it was mostly college-based white guys. And I can say that because this is first-hand experience. Nobody on the team knew how to calculate a tip because they've never weighed tables before. And that was the funniest thing to me. I mean, I'm an immigrant child. My parents have worked in restaurants. I have worked in restaurants. That's second nature to me. But nobody on the team knew anything about this. And they did all the, like, their only other engineer was a Latino who this was her second career. She weighed tables and she had to explain to them. And I said to her, did anybody look like an idiot? She's like, I had to not say what I think because I realized that they don't know the other side of the world where you have to weigh tables, calculate tips, do all that. They've never done all of that. And that's a thing. Like you'll have people who go into like agriculture startups as software engineers. You've never tilled land in your life. So half the stuff the farmer is saying, you'll never understand. But a farmer or a second generation farmer who's a farmer's kid who's done something before, who became a software engineer, is your best asset. But a lot of these persons who are employing people don't think like that because they're going, let's go with the kid who has a 4-year degree, not let's go with the kid who understands how the soil chemistry works or the kitchen works or how driving a truck actually works. But you want the 4-year degree person, you're looking at them going, yeah, this don't make any sense. That's like ageism overall. The next trick is like, I think, because listening to Todd literally saved me because I've been on the job hunt a while. Let's put it like that. And I've had final rounds. I've had, we really like you, but you are not what we're looking for. I got my most recent one this week. And I was like, driving a truck is really entertaining again. I guess I'll get paid enough to do what I want to do. And if I do it for 5 years, I can always figure out something else. And I'm like, no, tech is where I want I'm at. Tech is where I want to be. Because it's after a while, I had to remember something my mom made me read a while ago. She said, never let your greatest victory go to your head and never let your greatest defeat go to your heart, or something to that effect. And I had to wheel back and go, all right, let's go guide this again. Is it hard to keep going? Yes. Is it necessary? Yes, because I'm also an immigrant Black man in tech. And when I used to go to my first meetups about 4 years ago, I was the only Black person in the room. So I'm going to write this out. And plus, I get to have good friends like Mark and Meg and to annoy the hell out of them. So yeah, That's my 2 cents. Do I have another point? No, that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you. I like that, what your mother said. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll see you at the Waffle House, Narando. Yeah, no, about the ageism thing, like, I guess I kind of have a baby face, but I'm gonna be 46 in October, and even though, I mean, I have a job, I love where I work. In the back of my mind, even with my experience, I have this fear that one day, like when I'm looking for a job, it's gonna be like, oh, sorry, just because of the age, and I mean, don't get me wrong, it's important to have your communities and networks. This is where I've gotten most of my jobs, but I still have this feeling, and I can't really shake it, even though things are going well right now. And I know I'm good at what I do, but it's like, I can't shake it really, like, and I know you're a little older than me, Todd, but, it's weird to feel like that, and obviously I haven't experienced a lot of other prejudices in the industry because I am, like, I guess, a poster boy tech person. I'm a white guy in tech. So, like, a lot of problems that a lot of people experience, I do not. So, but it's, I don't know. Yeah, I find the ageism stuff weird. But at the same time, I know lots of people who are still in their 60s and programming, and like, that's ideally what I want to be doing. I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I don't see myself becoming like some higher up in a company or moving up further in the food chain. It's really, this is what I like doing, and I want to stay there. And it's, when you see, I don't know, it's clearly not legal at all for companies to do this, but like when they're like, well, there's experienced person X, and then there's like new grad or like 2 years in person, let's just take them, and to the party points, I was a huge party animal. So, but and I did work in restaurants too, Todd, so I know what you're talking about. But yeah, the thing too is, with age-wise for that, it's like, even people, when I was a party animal, there was tons of people that weren't, like, so it's like saying foosball table and you got to have drinks at, on the Fridays at work. Even with younger people today, that still doesn't fly. So it's gatekeeping in a way, sort of like, you can only work here if you party with us, kind of, which sounds very high school. So I don't know. I'm just spitting out random thoughts here. It's Friday. I don't know. My brain sizzled. So that, and the only thing I'll leave with is my mother-in-law from Newfoundland made homemade lobster rolls from Atlantic Lobster this past week. So they were fantastic, on toasted hot dog buns. You don't put it on anything else. Welcome to my TED Talk. Thank you.
That's just mean, Nick. That's just mean.
Andrea, what's up?
Hi. So okay, so on the ageism thing, like, I have many concerns. Obviously the culture thing, like some of the things we've been talking about, would just make me feel like, I didn't belong. But if there wasn't those things, and if there was, I'm fairly certain, I mean, it seems likely that when I get my first job, my boss is going to be younger than me. I'm okay with that, because that's just how tech is. I'm not going to weed out those jobs to find some other. I mean, I'm totally okay with that, but I don't know if they would be, or if they would think that I wasn't and not want to deal with the fact that I might not be, and just assume. As long as people are nice and respectful, and like, I'm just a different I'm making a career change. So I don't really have, you know, I don't have work experience in tech, but I have life experience and I have experience in a different field. And yeah, I just don't know, where was I going with that? I just have a lot of thoughts about this because I just don't know how I would be received. Because on the one hand, I'm entry level. But on the one hand, I might be significantly older than the person hiring me. And then like just the assumptions that they might make. They might assume that I'm older, so I have a higher standard of living, so I want more money for this entry level position. They might assume that I am gonna settle for this position right now, but in 6 months, I'm gonna want a promotion because, you know, after all, I am of a certain age. And none of that is true. I mean, I'm qualified for an entry level position. I expect it to be like any other entry level position. And I don't know, I'm just kind of, I guess, ranting about something that I don't even know for sure exists, but it wouldn't surprise me if those like assumptions are out there. And that would be so tragic, right? For somebody to just assume and never even check in to see if that's actually what's going on. Yeah, I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on how realistic that is, but those are some of my many concerns.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. Here's the direction I came in with, you know, interviewing with somebody half my age. Is I'm thinking after the interview was over, and I'm thinking like, is this just going to be a bunch of 20-year-olds marching around the office going, we don't want Gramps with us. He's going to be like the Buzz Killington of the party, you know? And that's where my head was at. Maybe that's the case. It's not the case all the time. I can definitely, you know, admit to that. But I mean, when I get this vibe from an interview, like it went in a direction I didn't expect it to, like that, you know, where, you know, they're looking at me, they're looking at my gray hair, which I keep short because, you know, you can see less of the gray hair. And this gray hair is also a lot from CSS, by the way. But especially in Internet Explorer. But yeah, it's like assumptions. Tech is filled with assumptions, but I've got to keep my assumptions to a minimum. I guess where I'm trying to get at. So Andrea, you know, you did peak a little, you know, thing in my thought process with, you know, maybe, well, definitely, you know, not all 20-year-old, you know, founders aren't that bad, but I mean, we see a lot of it. And it's a preconceived bias, I guess I could say.
I know we got Colin next. I just want to jump into a couple things based on sort of like the way the conversation has been flowing. So I think getting back to the point of like why people choose certain people for certain roles, I think sometimes there's a thing in this industry where we think we can outsmart sort of hard work and experience. And many tech hirers optimize for, well, if I just find somebody smart enough, they can smart their way through all the world's problems. You know, they don't have to be good at communicating. They don't have to have experience in the industry we're trying to disrupt. They just like, we can think through it. I can do some kind of Simon Sinek TED Talk, Jedi mind trick. No shame on Simon Sinek. He's good. I'm sure he's fine. You know, but I frequently see that type of thinking, you know, like my specific cleverness can be general cleverness and I can do everything. So they're like, we don't need to hire someone who focuses on accessibility. We can code our way through that. You know, we don't need to hire someone in healthcare. We can code our way through that, you know. We don't need to hire like a good communicator. Like we'll just make a product so good we don't have to do any marketing. Like you see this type of thinking very, very often. So like we're optimizing for people who work in compilers versus for people who work in hospitals, you know. And that's a problem. And I think that is also another way where somebody with more life experience gets displaced by someone with, you know, I don't know, more like straight A's or something, or better certificates, or whatever we're using, whatever the metric is, so we can get like our friends or something. There's also this implicit assumption that younger people have more energy, more passion. And honestly, I have not seen that to be the case. Young people are passionate, but everyone in this Zoom is here because in some way, in some shape, you know, this industry fascinates you and inspires you, and you're passionate about it, and you're passionate about your friends here. So that just hasn't held up with my lived experiences at all. And to you know, touch again on the concept of privilege, I think like the big thing I'm hearing, you know, like to deny the existence of your privileges and disadvantages is to do a disservice to yourself, past, present, or future, right? You might think like, oh, hey, everything's going great for me right now, but at some point, you know, like there's always something. Each of us has something that someone else is going to try and other us for. Sometimes it is your race, sometimes it is your gender, sometimes it is your age, and sometimes it is your disability, right? And unlike the others, that's the type of thing that may be there and may not be there, depending on where you are in your life, you know? And I feel like once you recognize that at any moment in time, you have the potential to be othered, then you start thinking, well, am I doing that to other people? You know, do I possess the same biases that I condemn other people for when it's happening to me, but am I subtly doing it to them? And, you know, once you get in that mindset, I think it's a lot easier to approach like, yeah, I'm a 30-year-old man in tech, and that's probably the best place to be on those two axes. That doesn't mean I don't have to work hard. It doesn't mean you don't have to try like everyone else, but that's my advantage in that space. And there are spaces where I don't have that advantage, you know, and it's probably worth doing some self-reflection there. Right. And my final point, because I'm talking too much, I'm only supposed to be the host. I'm supposed to be, what do you call me? Goose? Duck?
Goose.
Some kind of a mallard of some sort. We've been talking a lot about finding good spaces, and we should find good spaces. But I think like the second step is like, how do you make good spaces, right? We all deserve to work in a place where we can feel respected, where, as Todd says, we have the ability to come in, do a good job, do good work, make an impact. But I also think it's important when we identify the gaps in the spaces that we're in, as best as we can, with the bandwidth that we have, we try and fill in those gaps. So if you notice there's a space where you're at that could be improved, and a lot of times there's more wiggle room than we think, mainly because other people simply have not thought of these things, you can go to your your CEO, your 19-year-old Fortune 500, 30 under 30 whiz kid and be like, hey, I wrote some documentation for getting better people, getting people that can really help this company. And that documentation is really just making it easier for us to fairly evaluate everyone and not just the people who we think act like us. Yeah, that was my 3 pence calling. I think you're gonna take us home.
Yeah, I just had a collection of related thoughts, but being 61 and job hunting right now, I was laid off last July. I, as someone who's not in like the exact profile of what you're looking for, and that includes race and age, etc., you do have to just do more resume. The closer you are to that profile, the fewer job applications you have to put in, and as you go away from it, you have to do more to get the same state. So, you know, that's just part of the game. But some observations of how the field changed over time, because I've been actually working in tech for a long time. I had a job that lasted 15 years and ended in, I want to say 2016, but it could be 2014. Figured, okay, now I'm in a great position to be on a job hunt because I've just been working in neuroscience. So that means I could do anything, supposedly. You know, they have this isn't neuroscience is a thing. Well, this was. And I've been working there for 15 years. So that proves that I have loyalty and staying power, et cetera, et cetera. And like within my first week, someone said, oh, you've been at the same company for 15 years. You're going to look like a big loser. This was, by the way, a friendly person who was just telling me, you know, this was the way things are viewed. That if you haven't switched jobs every 3 years for a promotion or increase in pay, then you're not really like, there must be something not up to par with you. Whereas before I had started that job that lasted 15 years, it was like that would have been a good point on my resume. So the field changed to the point where working at a place for 15 years has gone from being a good thing to a bad thing, but whatever. And the other thing is, so I'm not sure if I've actually been discriminated by age, but one thing I feel is like I'm not getting enough props for being older. And one thing that's changed over time is that it used to be about half the jobs I'd apply towards, the manager would say, ultimately would be, you haven't done our exact job before, so we're not interested. We want someone who's done this exact job before. But fortunately, the other half would say, oh, you've done a lot of interesting things, and I can see that you're smart. So I'd rather have you than someone who's done the exact job before. But now, that's another way that things change. Now I'd say, you know, I was saying that's 50-50. But now it's more like 90-10. And that may be because just the field's become more specialized. It used to be if you were a house builder, first do the plumbing, then do the electricity, and then do the drywalling. Whereas now, drywalling and plumbing and electricians are all specialties. So maybe the field's just become more like that. Maybe that's one reason that they want people who have done the exact job before. Or another could be that computers sort through the resumes and they just look for it's a lot easier to just have a computer look for check boxes than to say, is this a smart person, which before computers were in that loop was easier to do. So then the one last thing I'd say is, since my career has sort of moved in interesting ways, I've almost never gotten a job through just applying into a portal or through the front door, but always through talking to people and word of mouth, because that way you can get in front of them, have lunch with them and impress them before they've had a chance to see your resume first and see that you haven't done their exact job before. And that's just a general suggestion for, especially if we have like non-traditional career paths, is see if you get lunch in front of the person by going to meetups and having friends, or like one thing I do martial arts, and so someone in the class would be in a tech job and I'd talk to them about it, and I got a job or two that way. So yeah, I guess that's my collection of points, my 2 cents. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I like the point on the tenure. That's another thing that amazed me before I got the Knowbility job. Was I would see somebody write, oh, you know, it's been so long, I've been here, but it's time for me to move on. It's been a year. And I'm like, what? Wait, what? And I'm going to be moving on to my new role at, you know, Y company from X company. You've only been there a year? I couldn't wrap my head around that. And the other thing too was, and Meg touched upon that, and Colin, you just touched upon that, was they're not, you know, companies aren't going to come out and say you're too old, because they can't, not in the United States because it's illegal. I don't know about anywhere else, but they can't say that. But I think when you get to a certain age, you kind of sense it or feel it. I don't know about anybody else. It's always a question I like to ask other people that are probably, I would say, 35 and older, is have you ever had that sense where it's been your age has been the barrier? Because with me, I found that I've had that feeling a lot, where I've had an interview and it's what I thought went great, but then there's that email. We loved your resume, but basically what those are is, to me anyways, is you're not the culture fit they're looking for. That's the gist of the email. So,
or they could have already known who they were hiring, but we're just throwing the net wider just in case that person didn't come through. But if they've already hired someone, no matter, or have someone who's good, no matter how good and how hard you do, they just have the one position.
As much as you can, do not tie your self-worth as a person or as a developer to the outcome of tech hiring and tech interviews. It's like Colin says, there are a million reasons why you could not get the job, and like only one of those is you were not qualified for the position, but it's rough, but it's just, I don't know, you have to like practice. All right, missed that one, and then like moving on. Nick and Andrea, then Nick.
I think actually Nick was first.
How is Zoom doing this? Okay, Nick first, then Andrea. Cool.
Yeah, the thing about people leaving companies like every year and a half or a year to 2 years also, I think, is partially the nature of startup culture. A lot of startups just fail, where people realize maybe, a year and a half in, this is going to go south, or and it's just been, I think part of it too is just it's been ingrained in the culture, like Todd was saying, where it's like accepted to leave, to go somewhere else. Like it's considered normal, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's it's, you do whatever you want, obviously it's your own career, but I think it also depends on the companies too, because like the previous place I worked at, Autodesk, it's a large engineering company, but the people I worked with there, even though I did ironically leave after about a year and a half, a lot of those folks had been working there since 2000. But they might have switched different divisions or departments, but they've stayed in that particular company. Just there's incentives in place because like stocks and all that too, I think, which is what keeps people in here. But if you go to the startup land, the likelihood of a startup being successful is pretty low. Don't get me wrong, I don't mean in a negative way. It's just, that's just a reality. So like all these, potential stock options you get are literally toilet paper until something actually happens, it's like, or it's a cocktail napkin. So it's like the incentive to potentially is maybe, well, whatever, I was here for a bit, but, this other company might be offering me a better deal. And I don't know. It's like, I feel like there's some old school companies, and they're also probably the ones that are least likely to promote remote work too, but that's another thing. And then there's startup land, which is kind of like wild west still, I find. So that's all I got.
So I guess I can go. I'm just, the concept of it being illegal to, discriminate based on age. I almost wonder, that's a well-intentioned law, and on the face of it, it's a great idea, but I almost wonder if it would be better if that wasn't the law in some ways. I think it's had unintended consequences, because if it's true that sometimes you don't get the job mainly because you're older, they can't tell you that. So you walk away going, did the technical interview, was not quite enough because I didn't remember this one thing, or was it this, or was it, and you ask for feedback. Oh, well, they don't have any feedback for you. So then you don't know what to change. At least then you'd be like, well, I can't change my age. If that's what they're upset about, I guess the rest of it went well.
So if it was legal, your point is that if it were legal to discriminate, then they could just say, we thought you were a little too old.
Yes, I understand the law. I mean,
No, but you're saying you wish the law were different. So if the law were different, your point is that they'd be able to say that, and then you would know.
Yeah, I don't know if I wish the law was different or not. It's just an unintended consequence of the law, because I don't think the law is really stopping people from doing what it's supposed to stop people from doing. And it has this negative side effect of you don't even know that that's for sure what's happening, because that would be self-incrimination for them to tell you that. So
you'd rather them tell you that is what I'm hearing.
I would rather know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how. I like the idea of the law, but the law should be different because it's not functioning the way it's supposed to. And it's also kind of backfiring and doing more damage in a way to older people than it would be otherwise if it just wasn't illegal. But it's not that I think it should be legal. I think the law should be different. I'm sure the law isn't going to change, but it just adds an additional layer of frustration for older workers when it's supposed to be helping older workers.
So I just want to real quick talk about that. That reminds me of laws in the ADA in the United States. It's a very blanket law. It's a very generic statement. You can't tell somebody it's because of their age, but yet you can't discriminate. There are laws, quote unquote, in the ADA that say you can't, discriminate against disabled people because ... But yet places find a way to finagle their way around those words in the ADA to, not adhere to it. So I get what you're saying, Andrea, and it's a very, very good point. Yeah, totally agree. I wish people would just say it. You're too old. And I'd be like, all right.
Then you know who's a jerk and you can just move on, right? It's like, okay, that person was a jerk. Yeah.
And I'll add you to my list. No.
My list of jerks. No, I would totally add them to a list of jerks, and I tell everyone, hey, they're jerks. Unfortunately.
You would think that they would just say, I have a young guy and an old guy and they're equal. So since discrimination is illegal, we better choose the old guy.
Yeah, they're not that's not the wavelength that they typically operate on. But unfortunately, we have to wrap this up here. This was a really nice conversation, and I really appreciate Todd for kind of talking about this and just getting us going. At the beginning, I'm like, this feels relevant to all of us. I didn't realize just how much it would be. And certainly from the participation of everyone here, this is a real thing. If it doesn't affect you, but you plan on staying in this industry, at some point it will, right? Unless we do whatever we can to change it. We try and find the good spaces. We tell other people about the good spaces. We make sure the good spaces get all the support they need so they can stay. We tell people about the bad spaces too, so they don't get the support that they need, and they have to either change or go away. And when we have the opportunity and the power and the privilege to bring people in, we do our best to do that. And I'm happy there are people like Todd. I'm really happy that Todd is still with us in this industry, doing the good work that he wants to do, doing it on his own terms. And I hope that we can all do the same. Again, thank you all for being here. We can always keep this conversation going in the Slack, GitHub, our regular coffee chat. We'll be putting this video online soon. So if you want to watch it again, and for all the people, of course, who couldn't make it, they'll have a chance to see it. Next week, just need to tell you guys what our next brown bag is, but my computer is being super slow, so it's gonna take a little while. Give me a second. Virtual coffee. There's no like secret maintain. I just go to meeting place like everyone else to check. Yeah, so next week we will have Chess and AI, Canary in the Coal Mine with Jesse. So gonna be the same format as here. I think it is at the same time at 12 EDT. So you'll get all the info for that soon. And yeah, if you have any questions, reach out to any one of us maintainers. We're always happy to help. And if any of you want to do a brown bag of your own, you can always reach out to us. There's a form in the Slack. You just fill it out. We contact you. We figure out the time, get it all set up. And yeah, have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, everybody.